Why is email so overwhelming and frustrating? What's working? What's not? How often should you even be checking your email, unsubscribes, or open rates? These are the questions that we're going to be answering today and more with our wonderful guest, Kendra. Kendra is giving so much value during this episode, not just on email marketing, but also on how our email can actually integrate with our podcast and our social media and how it all ties together, making sure that we're not doing more than we actually need to be doing. And as business owners, especially solopreneurs, this is vital. So please join me in welcoming Kendra to the podcast. Hello, Kendra. I am so excited to have you on the show. We met because I was on your podcast recently and I absolutely loved our conversation. I thought, you know what? I need to have her on my show. So here you are. If you could start by telling everyone who you are, what you do, and about your podcast first.
Yeah, sure. My name is Kendra Corman, and I've been in marketing for more than 20 years. I usually say more than 15 because it makes me sound younger, but I actually started as a Jeep advertising manager. And after I left corporate, I've been helping small businesses and entrepreneurs grow their business through marketing. And now I train people on how to do better, more effective and efficient marketing. My podcast is called Imperfect Marketing. Imperfect marketing because marketing is anything but a perfect science. As any of you guys know listening, if you have been doing marketing for any extended period of time, some things work, some things don't. And a lot of times you're like, why didn't that work? Why did this work for that person and not me? And we can question a lot of different things. A lot of marketing experimentation, but it's progress over perfection. And that's what I stress at the Imperfect Marketing podcast.
And I think that's such an important aspect of marketing. I mean, my degree's in marketing and like knowing that marketing has changed so much over the years and also seeing a screenshot of Neil Patel's here's what you need to be successful on Instagram that's been like making its rounds in the last week or two. And everybody's like, who has time to do all of these things? We have to do one collaboration every week, go live once to 2 times a week, have a certain number of carousels, a certain number of posts, this many reels in a week. Oh my, like where do you find time for any of the other platforms that you want to be on, or email or your podcast or creating content? And that's why I think that, and this is something that I've been really pushing for myself and also in conversation with other people this year, is where are you enjoying yourself the most? Where can you show up best? And if you're just pushing yourself to be on Instagram or be on TikTok or be on these other places and it doesn't feel good, then you're not going to show up well at all. And it's not even worth it. So let's talk about that first before we get into email marketing, which is obviously the point of this conversation and where we want to go. But what are your thoughts on be where everybody is, or be where your clients are supposed to be, or be where you best show up? What do you think?
Okay, so I love that question and I love your perspective on it because that is mine 100%. A lot of us are small business owners. We're solopreneurs. We're entrepreneurs. The one thing that we don't have enough of is time, right? And so let's not burn ourselves out. When you go home and after dinner, whatever, late at night, you're sitting on your phone and you're scrolling through something. What are you scrolling through? That's where you should be because that's where you feel comfortable. That's where you want to be. That's the type of content that you like to engage with. That's what I want you thinking about, because if it feels like work, you're not going to do it. And I think that that's really important to think of. Now, a lot of people are like, well, be where your target audience is. There's 2 billion people on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on TikTok. If your target isn't among those 2 billion people, then we probably need to start looking at who your target is. Your target's going to be they're on all the different social media channels. Maybe not the person you met at the last networking event that you went to. Maybe not this client, but this other client is. There's enough people out there on those different social media channels and on the social media channels that you like to be on that you can do this. And that you can pick whatever of the big channels that you want to be. If you start getting super niche and going into Substack or something along those lines, I get it. There's a lot smaller group there. And that's where you need to start making sure that your audience is there. But on the big guys, Pick which one you like.
That is a breath of fresh air and a relief, I think, for a lot of listeners who are like, oh, okay. I don't have to be everywhere. I don't have to show up in all of these places. And, one thing that I preach pretty religiously on this show is your mental health is more important than your podcast. And I think the same goes for marketing your business, right? If you are struggling, something's wrong. It gets to be easy, right? Like, I don't think that it has to be as hard as we make it out to be. And it gets harder when we're comparing ourselves to what somebody else is doing or how someone else is showing up. I recently had someone say, "Oh, Alicia, you're showing up like so much. I'm seeing your content all over the place." And I was like, but I'm not on that platform. It's just pre-scheduled stuff that automatically goes out. That's it. Like, my team is scheduling most of it and it's just podcast content. And I don't have to be there, but I'm still able to show up in a way that is making people think that I'm showing up everywhere. And I'm like, nope, not really. I'll be honest. I'm in small spaces. I'm in cohorts. I'm in those types of places. And that's where I like to show up best. But this idea of email, right, has been a hot topic for, I would say, 2 years now, of all of the switches and changes. And you have to have an email that looks like this, or you have to have your email address look a certain way. Are there any myths that we need to dispel going into this conversation before we even get into podcasting and email and social media?
Yeah. So first, to start off with, the biggest myth out there is that email marketing is dead. That's my favorite. It's not. It's not dead. It's alive and kicking. And every time you hear something is dead, odds are it's not dead because people are still talking about it. Email has one of the highest returns on investment of any channel out there, which is pretty cool, right? So when you're thinking about email marketing, I think it's got a $42 return for every dollar spent on average. That's huge. What other channel will return you $42 for every dollar you invest? None other than I'm aware of, right? And I'm a fan of direct mail sometimes too. None of it has the return of email. Email is amazing. I think the whole point of being on social media, at least for me, is to get people to join my email list so that I can have a conversation with them, so that I can build a relationship with them on my time when I'm on it. And that way, if Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn get hacked or throw me in LinkedIn jail or Facebook jail or any of the other places that they lock you out of your content, that it's okay and that I can still do business. That is what is key to me. I own my email marketing, and that's really important. When it comes to other myths related to deliverability and stuff, there has been an increase since February of 2024 of you're going into the spam filter. And that is because Google and Yahoo both latch down on all of the spammy emails, and they want to authenticate your domain. So if you use a reputable service like Constant Contact, ConvertKit, things like that, they'll actually authenticate your domain for you and actually tell you how to authenticate your domain. And all that means is that when it goes to Gmail servers to go to whomever you're sending it to, the Gmail server pings your database or your DNS and says, "Is this real?" And they're like, "Yes, it's real." And then they let it go through. So there's a lot of talk about, well, they don't have to deliver your emails anymore. Actually, I heard that one 2 days ago and I was like, yeah, they still deliver your emails. It's just going to spam because you didn't authenticate your domain and you're sending it to a list of which 50% of your emails on the list are bouncing. So they're thinking that you're a spammer. Not good. Not good. But overall, I would say quality over quantity when it comes to email addresses. If you've got 8,000 people on your email list, congratulations. I've found people with 200 people on their list that are more profitable with people with 8,000 because those 8,000 aren't relationships. They're people marking it spam, or they're people that have moved jobs and they don't have what's called a clean list and they haven't been taking care of it.
So I'm trying to figure out which direction to go next. I'm going to give you both and then you kind of choose your own adventure here. The first thought is cleaning your list, right? We could go that direction of all right, how often should you do it? What should that process kind of look like? And then something you mentioned of who are those people you're getting on your list? Why are they there? How does that relationship feel? And in order to, okay, I've got you on my list. Now you're just not there. Maybe you're there for the free stuff. Cool. Or maybe you're there for more. How do we nurture that relationship? So, which way do you want to go first?
So let's go with why people are on your list, because then that can flow into cleaning it a little bit. But people are there for the value that you have to share. There are emails that you get that you look forward to opening, right? Because you know it's going to have some valuable point, or it's going to have some really cool insight, or a great story that you're going to be able to learn from or be entertained by. Again, there's a reason that it's connecting with you. That person that wrote that email knows you. They're talking directly to you, and you might be one of 10,000 people they're sending it to. And all 10,000 probably react almost exactly the same way, because they know who their audience is, they know who they want to be talking to, and they know what they want to be sending them. So most of the time, people join my list downloading a freebie, right? And then they get into my welcome series, which right now is just one email, but I welcome them to the list, let them know, hey, here's your freebie. And then they go into my regular email cadence. And I know who my audience is, and I'm writing directly to them. Not afraid to show my personality. That's one of the big concerns that everybody has when it comes to it. I think it took me almost 10 years to break myself of my corporate background and tone of voice, but I finally caught on and became myself. They want to engage with you. They want to talk with you like you're a person and like they're a person, right? And that's what they're looking for, is that relationship building. So giving value, sharing information, sharing stories. And there's no reason that you can't transition those stories into things that you sell, right? There's a lesson in there for them, and then what you sell. So I usually follow the 80-20 rule of marketing and selling, right? I add value 80% of the time and sell about 20% of the time. But I've found people selling more often than that, and I'm still opening their emails because they're still giving me value in the front end of those emails. So think about the person that you want to talk to. Think about who they are and why you are reaching out to them, what you have to offer them, and have a conversation. That is probably the number one thing to do when it comes to nurturing and selling an email. And then watch for those unsubscribes, watch for the bounces. I encourage everybody to go in at least twice a year. So at least once every 6 months, preferably once every quarter, and take a look who's bouncing. Get rid of all the bounces so that you're not sending to those people. Take a look at the unsubscribes. Take a look at your open rate. If it's going down big time because people aren't opening your emails or they're not clicking, see if you can figure out why. Sometimes that's by design. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it might be because people have evolved beyond the services that you sell, right? And so that's okay to send a re-engagement campaign once a year and get those people who are not engaging and may not be reading off your email list. It'll shrink your email list, but it'll actually increase your deliverability and all of the metrics that go with it once you have it all nice and cleaned up.
It's very similar to how we would approach like our Instagram followers, right? Or other things like that, where, you want to make sure that the people that you're interacting with, the people that you're connecting with, in order to keep those rates a certain way, especially if you're like an influencer or more of like a content creator, you want to have those rates a certain way in order to be able to approach brands or create collaborations and say, this is what my stats are. So that taking that same approach, I think, is so important. And then you mentioned something, and I want to kind of dig into this a little more, giving value, right? So often, and I hear this from podcasters to creators to people who are like, I don't know what even to talk about today, but like sometimes people feel like by giving value, they are giving away everything and they're very protective of their content. What would you say to that?
I would say odds are I can figure out what it is that you do by going on YouTube, right? I can go on YouTube or I can listen to a stream of podcasts and I can figure out everything that you're going to share with me. The service that I'm buying from you is either one, because I don't have time to do it, right? If you're going to do it for me, or if you're selling digital courses or content in some sort of way like that, or checklists and things like that. Again, the reason I'm buying it because I want it spoon fed to me. I want it in the way you're going to teach it. I want to be able to ask clarifying questions. I don't want to have to Google it. Again, it comes down to time. If I have all the time in the world, I can figure out what you have to share with me without any problem. That's not your audience. Those are not the people that are going to pay for your services, right? Those are not the people that are going to pay for your course or pay for your done for you social media posting or anything like that. There is very little that I truly believe to be proprietary. Now, I do believe people have to pay for things. If I spend time making a checklist, you have to pay for that. Now, it might be $7. It might be your email.
Right.
One way or another, you're paying for it, right? You're paying me for it and you're compensating it. But other than that, the information, it's all out there. Maybe you have a different spin on it. Maybe you have a different angle. But trust me, I would say 99% of information is out there. Don't worry about that. Okay. People who want to do business with you are going to do business with you. The more you give freely, like I have not heard anybody that's given away stuff say, oh, I wish I didn't give away all that information.
Yeah.
Like nobody. And these are like multi-million-dollar businesses that give away information on a daily basis. It's okay to do that. It's okay to share that. I was recently talking to a woman who she actually makes money off of her YouTube channel. She makes a bit off her YouTube channel, which is great. She's got quite a few followers. It is monetized. She makes more money off her affiliate links in her YouTube channel by sharing freely all of this information than she makes in anything else. 75% of her income is from her affiliate links, from freely giving away information. That is a case study in why you should just give it all away.
I couldn't agree more. And I feel like, and this is something that I've seen, with our clients as well as with myself, of like, if the free stuff is this valuable, if the free stuff or the cheaper stuff is this valuable, or I only have to give my email for this, then what is it like to have a strategy session? Or what is it like to work one-on-one with this person? How can I really make the most of, okay, I've spent money on this person, I want to. And then the other thing is, one of my clients recently had someone on their podcast. I will make sure it's linked in the show notes. I can't remember exactly how she said it, but some type of Venn diagram. I can only remember 2 of the circles, so this is not helpful at all, but stay with me here. The first was information, right? Educational stuff. And we're just giving this information that anyone can Google anywhere. And then at that point, we're a commodity. We're just like everybody else. And the magic happens when the second circle, I don't know what the third one is, guys, it's fine. But the second circle, which was your personality, the way that you help people, your stories, your perspective, your kind of soapbox moments, right? Like that is where the magic happens when you combine these things to be able to show up in a way that they can't get that anywhere else. They can't get that from Googling because you have such a unique perspective. And that's where I think, like you said, that storytelling is so important in our email. And like being able to share those examples and those stories and leading people back to either our services or maybe a checklist that we have that is free that they haven't downloaded or whatever it is. So what are maybe some ways that we can give more value within the email as podcasters? So we've created a podcast episode. We're excited about it. And we don't want to regurgitate the same thing, or should we just say, it's okay to repurpose this in a way that makes sense for my email? What does that kind of balance look like?
Okay. So what I like to do when it comes to my email newsletter and my podcast is it's sort of a mix of regurgitation and not. So I try to apply something from the podcast in a slightly different way. So we'll just say that I had a podcast about niching down recently, which I don't think it was recently, and we talk about, finding your audience, right? And so I have that, it links to a checklist on identifying your dream audience and your target audience and really describing them so you understand who they are. Well, the email that I sent about that one was how we defeated Mr. Generalist. And it was a superhero versus the villain type of a story that I sent out to my list. And I actually got like 10% of my list actually responded to it. And they're like, did AI
Wow.
generate this for you? And I was like, no. Um,
Nice.
I edited it and cleaned it up a little bit, but they did not generate it. And we talked about how, the person was fighting niching down and that, niche down girl came in her costume and, took her to the checklist so that she would niche down and find, really how to be able to talk to that audience. Podcast has got nothing about superheroes. It's got nothing about the client example on how it was applied. It has nothing with the objections that the client had when they were to that objection. It has the lesson, right? It has the how do you go about this in the podcast episode. The email was about like, what were the motivations to get there? What were the struggles? What were the objections to get there that drove them in to want to listen?
I love this so much because it really showcases how our content can feed from podcast to email to social to podcast to email. And really, it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. And I remember talking to someone who she was coming up with brand new content for her podcast every week, brand new content for her email subscribers every week, brand new content for her socials every week. And I was like, girl, first, dial it back. You don't have to do that. What's your podcast about? Spin off of that. That is literally all you have to do. Pick
Mhm.
one place that you love showing up. And if that's your podcast, great. If that's social, great. Email, great. Write that email, then create a podcast episode off of that email, then create social content. Like you can start anywhere in any of this kind of cycle of life to figure out what is going to work best for you to be able to show up in all of these places. And it doesn't have to be hard. And I think that's the key.
If it's hard, if you feel like you are working all day, every day at your marketing, you're doing it wrong. Okay. Because it shouldn't be that hard. If you're focused and you have a cohesive message, it is going to be more effective, more efficient with your time, and you're going to feel like you're moving forward, not just that you're doing things, not this. I use Asana as my task management system, and I love it when I check off a bunch of things and a unicorn flies across the screen. Okay, which is great. But that doesn't move my business forward, right? So those checkoffs that I do need to make a difference. And showing up for my podcast, recording the episodes, I love that. I love it when recently I was recording one of my solo shows. I had AI. I was like, it's not all about the open rates. It's not the whole story. I'm like, oh, create a nursery rhyme for me about how open rates are. And I actually read a nursery rhyme at the beginning because I can have fun with that. I can have a lot of fun with that. And there's ways to, again, have fun with your marketing. Make sure it's showing who you are. But yeah, pick one thing that is your core and then build everything else off of it. Because people are so inundated with messages that if you're doing a different podcast, a different email, and different social media posts, I got a news flash for you. They don't have enough messages from you that they're seeing with the same message that they don't remember. It didn't resonate with them because they're inundated with so much information. Now, if they listened to your podcast or they saw your email and then they got hit by social, guess what? All of a sudden they remember what you were sharing because it's hitting them from all the different angles. It's called integrated marketing. And that's the whole goal of what we're doing. That's why TV commercials are the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Until you could probably say the entire script, right? Guess what? That's what they want you to do. Now there's a point where it gets really annoying. But 90% of brands, 90% of entrepreneurs and small businesses, we don't come close to meeting that threshold. So keep hitting them over the head with the same message because they forgot it.
Yeah. Such a good reminder. So thinking about this, let's get a little more like tactical, right? Written email, I like words is what I mean. Typed out email. I've seen people where they will actually say, want to watch me speak this email. So they'll have a video at the top and they'll also have the written one there. So if you want to watch or if you want to read it, you could do that. There's one, a friend of mine, she does hers where she'll read it to you. So you just see a little button at the top, you just click it and she'll read her email to you. Those are the ones I actually open very regularly because I like her voice and I like listening to her. But like I'm seeing people find different ways to show up in their email in a way that feels good, but also allows them to reach people however they like to consume the content. Are there any things that you're finding are working really well or not working in any of that regard?
Okay. So this is going to sound a little bit crazy, but what I'm finding is working the best is text on an email. No pictures, no nothing that makes it look like it's email marketing. It is just an email from me to you. There's no button. There's a link. It's very interesting, but we're optimizing for mobile. We're optimizing for mobile like crazy. So depending on who your target is, if they're on mobile, if they're scrolling through their emails, they feel more like it's written to them when it's just text in an email, comes across their screen. I got an email not too long ago from Marie Forleo, if anybody knows who she is. And yeah, it's just a bunch of text. And then she's got like a little image that says XOXO Marie. That's it. At the bottom.
Wow,
I mean, it's
okay.
crazy. And here's the thing. If something else was working better, she'd have it because she has a huge machine that's running her email for her, right? Yes, maybe she's writing it. Maybe she's giving direction. Maybe she's reviewing it. I don't 100% know her process, but it's just plain text. Plain text is winning over everything else. It's crazy.
Yeah, good to know though, right? Which is it's so different and maybe this is the point is that it's so different than what we're consuming in the other areas of social media, etc., that it's reaching maybe differently. So that is very interesting and something I think that people should consider as they go forward, right, with their email marketing.
And it annoys me because I really have pretty pictures. I've got a designer on my team. Like there's so many cool things that I could add into the email. And then you're like, that's what you want? Is the text? Seriously? Okay, fine.
As someone who likes to put GIFs in my emails, that's very annoying too.
Well, the GIFs are okay. Shockingly enough, GIFs actually perform fairly well, again, depending on your audience. So you can keep putting in your GIFs. Again, strategically, I wouldn't use them in every email. I'd use them in like every other, every third, or, some sort of pattern like that so that it just adds a splash every now and again. And again, marketing's not a perfect science. So you're listening to the email. That's amazing. Like if you find that people are listening to the email, do that. Test it out. Do it. Say, hey, I'm testing this new thing. What do you think? Don't be afraid to ask people for their feedback. Every audience is different. And I think testing is really important. When I started putting gifts in my emails about 2 years ago, I had a 30% spike in open rate. For whatever reason, people were engaging and opening and downloading the pictures a lot more with my emails once I had gifts in there than they were without them. Then I went to all text and then my open rate increased again. And the click rate actually increased because they felt it was more personal. But keep in mind, it was declining 3 years ago when it was just text. So I think your audience evolves over time, your target evolves, what they want to consume evolves. So you've got to be experimenting. You've got to be checking it out and playing with it a little bit and figuring out what's going to work best for you. Don't be afraid to experiment and let them know, hey, I'm running an experiment. What do you think? They'll tell you. People like to share their opinions.
Oh, yes. Yes, they do. Unwanted or not. Kendra, this has been fantastic. And I feel like we have so many actionable things that people can take from this conversation to not only do better with their email marketing, but also better with their content and their marketing as a whole. So if they're interested in what are the ways that people can work with you, get to know you?
I actually have a couple of courses, but I do strategy consulting and I have a lot of freebies. You can get all of those available at my website, kendracorman.com/freebies. FREEBIES, and go ahead and grab whatever you think is going to help you make a difference in your business. And then I always include my email address with every freebie so you can always respond And I'll get back to everybody that sends me any questions as a follow up to any of those items too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll make sure we have that linked in the show notes as well for anyone driving or doing other things. Kendra, this has been so great. Thank you.
So much fun. Thanks.